Today's video is the most important video about what might be the most important bike of 2025. Hey everybody, welcome to MTB Party. I'm so glad that you're here. We are a technical educational channel to help people learn correct information and not just hype about bicycles. My name is Steve and I'm a professional mountain bike reviewer. Today we're taking a deep look at the Ozark Trail FS.2 Slalom. Everybody is missing the point of this bike, and today we're going to talk about that. So this is a full suspension bike sold through Walmart Direct for under $475. This bike is the best evidence we have that bikes can actually be affordable, not just in this tier, but in every single tier. And the team at Ozark Trail has completely shattered boundaries and preconceived notions and excuses that other bike companies are making, saying it's not possible to do certain things in this price range, which is why this bike is a game changer and why it's probably the most important bike we're going to talk about in a long time. Now, the target market of this bike is not people who've been mountain biking for years and years. It's people who are brand new to the sport. So we're gonna go ride this bike through their eyes to see if it can create enough joy and connection with nature and fun to get a new rider hooked. Let's go. I remember my first mountain bike ride like it was yesterday. I had so much fun. And all I was doing was stuff like this. Basically a paved trail that's made out of dirt. But I identified with mountain biking and it sparked something in my soul where I realized, you know what? This is going to be my thing. It tracks really well, and if you don't know that forks aren't supposed to sound clunky, as a newbie, you'd probably be okay. There's good control, actually. You can actually play around a bit and pop and catch some air. I've got a smile on my face, and that's the job of your first mountain bike, is to help you have fun so you just can't think about anything else but getting back on your bike. Make sure you stay tuned to the end where I talk about which upgrades I would do and which order I would do them. It's got all the things that a new biker looks for: 29-inch wheels, disc brakes, and suspension in the front and suspension in the rear. Now that's where a lot of bikes stop in the beginner market, and as long as they have that and the price is right, people buy them. But even though I don't know the team that designed this and what went on behind closed doors, I can see things that actually took more energy and cost more money that they didn't need to do, that they could have cut those corners, but instead they chose to keep them in, and I'm so grateful for that. This thing needs a dropper. I'm excited to throw one on. I love that I can. A department store bike that you can put a dropper on. That's so crazy. This bike is heavy, 38.9 pounds. And I do feel the weight right now. But you know what? If I put myself in the mindset of a new rider, I'm in nature, I'm pedaling, the breeze is through my hair, I'm having fun, and I'm thinking, hey, I kind of like this mountain bike thing. It's a little bit embarrassing being in the bike industry and seeing Walmart coming out swinging, doing things that other bike companies in the industry for decades are too afraid to do on their entry model bikes. And we've got to talk about that. First up is geometry. Geometry is free. It does not cost you any extra money to make the angles correct on a bike. If you're interested in geometry, I have a whole master course I built with over 130 video lessons on geometry and what makes a bike geometry work well. I threw this on my geometer at home where I could measure some of the angles, and I'm seriously impressed with the geometry. 65-degree head angle, 76-degree effective seat angle, 445 chainstay, 450 reach. Really modern numbers that we're seeing on bikes 4 times its cost. But then we've got big brands that are doing bikes that cost twice as much as this with worse geometry. That's a little embarrassing for Walmart to beat them at their own game. Geometry is also one of those things that's very difficult, if not impossible, to change later down the road with upgrades. That's why I focus so much on frames and the soul of the bike when reviewing it. So bravo Ozark Trail team for making fantastic geometry. All right, we're at the intermediate zone. We're gonna go hit the 3 drops like we were a beginner. All right, beginner level drop. Man, the geometry is so good on this. Why is nobody else doing good geometry? This just goes to show how important geometry is, far more important than components. I don't like the fork. I feel a little clunk when I come off the air, but I'm in control because the geometry is just right. Oh, so controlled. The rear suspension's surprisingly not clattery. That felt really good. Even the landing felt really good. Like the fork doesn't feel clapped. It's just when you leave the ground, you feel it kind of extend hard and top out. Probably what impresses me the most about this frame is the modern standards that it has. We've all been bit by a bike that was almost modern, and then we went to go buy something to upgrade it only to find out it didn't fit. It's obvious that this bike was meant to be upgraded. They've got a threaded bottom bracket. They've got a through axle boost rear wheel. This is a huge deal. In fact, I refuse to review bikes that do not have boost through axles because the quick release axles, I've seen far too many problems with them coaching on my NICA team and on trail rides with people where either they don't put the wheel in totally straight so the brakes are rubbing and the shifting's off, or they do put it in straight and it comes out later when we get to more technical terrain, or those tiny toothpick size axles are just not holding up like they should. And a lot of the bikes that I get in for review, the high-end model has a through axle, and then the lower end model of the same frame has the quick release in the rear. You cannot put a high-end bolt-on axle and wheel into those old quick release things. And the team at Ozark Trail knows that, and bravo to them for building this with a through axle boost rear end. That means I can put any of my high-end wheel sets and they will bolt directly onto this frame. Huge, huge win. Now with that said, this has a quick release front wheel. I'm anti-quick release front wheel too, but if you had to pick one to be a quick release, you should pick the front wheel like this team did. This is something that everyone's gonna gloss over, but it's so important. It's way cheaper to get a new fork with a new front wheel than to buy an entirely different frame. Another standard they paid attention to that they didn't have to was this tapered head tube. A tapered head tube is stiffer and stronger and more modern. It's what most of our new forks are. They could have saved money and kept that really small nth and an H top and a bottom, and 99% of the people that buy this would never know. And then this fork is gonna crap out, and then they're gonna be left with very, very few options. In fact, this fork isn't even a tapered fork. They've got an adapter in there, which costs them more money to make it work with this modern tapered head tube. So bravo to the team there as well. Forward thinking, I can take any one of my forks, dream forks, and bolt them directly on here because they were thinking about that. Another thing they did right was the seat tube is for a 31.6 post. Bravo, that sounds like a simple thing. It's free, you just get a tube that's the right size, but there are so many companies screwing up on that and having smaller seat tubes that don't fit the average modern size dropper. So this is totally dropper ready. I can pop in a very nice modern dropper and it's gonna fit right in. Bravo on that standard as well. It's also got a threaded bottom bracket shell. Now it's a 68 millimeter, a little bit narrower than I'd like. I'd love a 73, but it's still threaded and I can still run my high-end cranks in here with a couple little spacers. That's not a deal breaker. They've also got internal cable routing. That is seriously impressive, and they've got dropper cable routing. They've got room for a water bottle, another thing that a lot of companies can't quite seem to get right. One thing I think they could have done better was make more clearance for bigger tires. This says it maxes out at 235. I'm pretty sure we'll get a 2.4 in there, but I think for a little bit extra work, they could have made that a little bit bigger. All right, let's see how this thing wheelies, see if we can wheelie the whole bridge. Woo! Hey, not bad. Man, Geo is free. Why do so many companies get it wrong? You don't need to save good Geo for your $1,500 bikes. And because this has such good Geo, I feel so confident on it. That might be a problem if I get more confident than the bike can handle, but so far I'm impressed. One thing I notice, even on the pavement, this has a setback seat post. So even though it's got a modern 76-degree seat tube angle, you feel a tiny bit stretched out compared to modern bikes, but a non-setback post will fix that. Solid little riding experience so far. Now the third thing they did right was their component selection, and they cut corners in the right places, in my opinion. The drivetrain is absolutely fantastic. Shimano Q's 9-speed, wonderful. I don't need to change this out at all. The saddle's even an ergonomic saddle. This does not look like a department store bike. We have Kenda tires. I'm not sure which model this is, but they look pretty dang good, and they're not rock hard rubber. I have a lot of hope for these tires. They've got a 1x drivetrain, great to see, with a narrow wide chainring. Again, that's another place they could have skipped and no one would have noticed until it was too late. Even their pedals, which are cheesy, have an Allen key to add and remove them. That's just one more barrier to overcome that a lot of people don't have pedal wrenches for. It's just those small things that you can tell the people that put this together know bikes and know what it's like to work on them and are frustrated by the same things the rest of us are. The shock even has some damping in it. Now we're gonna go test it to see how good that is, but that's another thing that they didn't have to do. It makes it at least semi-adjustable. There are some things that aren't great. I think the hardware and the bolts are kind of cheesy. They feel real soft when you get a wrench on them. I wish the bars were like 760 instead of 720. The fork is terrible. It's really non-adjustable. It's got these preload knobs, but I've already, just turning them by hand, I've already stripped them and they just keep turning and turning. When your front wheel leaves the ground, it goes thunk and just extends too fast. And so I would recommend replacing the fork. And if you're replacing the fork, get a tapered fork with Boost 110 15 mil front spacing. That will make a huge difference and be very worth the upgrade. The curve of the bars is a little odd. The sweep is just a little bit off. They do have cool little markings to make sure it's centered. That's another small thing that a lot of component companies don't do and should. Man, lock-on grips. You've even got reach adjust on the brakes here. Contrary to Seth's video, this is not a single pivot. This is a 4-bar and it's a horse link. And if the engineers did that right, it might be really good performing suspension. We'll find out with a more adjustable shock soon. And aside from the weight, which makes it a little slow to accelerate, it does pedal well. I'm getting far less bob than I've gotten on some $4,000 bikes before. Yeah, the fork is definitely not refined. It doesn't track the ground very well. There are limited adjustments you can make to it. Man, why did it take Walmart to get good geometry on affordable bikes? We found a viewer on a beautiful carbon chameleon. Enjoy. Where are you from?
Colorado.
Colorado. And what's your name?
Jared.
Jared, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Beautiful chameleon.
Thank you.
Still getting those crazy noises out of the fork. It jumps pretty well. It's unnerving with the way that fork unloads, but man, because this has modern geo, it'll carve this up. Oh yeah, if I were new, I'd be hooked. So fun. Man, that geo's good. Geo is everything, as long as they're modern standards. Bravo, and bravo to the trail builders here in Bentonville. That is so fun. You could totally get hooked on mountain biking on this bike on that trail, and man, it would give you some good modern riding technique. These brakes have not quite bedded in yet like I'm hoping. I have no problem with decent mechanical brakes. Right now they're letting me down a little bit. Now we need to talk about the price. The team at Ozark Trail has done something that everyone else says impossible. Create a Boost through axle rear wheel for under $500. Because of this, we should never, ever see another quick release rear axle on a bike frame, full stop. They've proven that it's possible, and every other company that says, oh, it's just too expensive, we can't get a through axle hub for the price that we need to reach that, they just proved it wrong. And this is why this bike might be the most important bike of 2025, is because it's putting pressure on the rest of the industry to stop making excuses for putting garbage on their frames and designing frames around stuff that's not worth upgrading. Isn't that a little bit embarrassing that Walmart did it when bike companies that have been around for 20, 30 years can't seem to get that right and they just make excuses? Another thing this price point does is it opens up mountain biking to a whole group of people that never had access to it before. There have always existed sub $300 full suspension bikes at department stores, but they were not really capable on the trail. And because of that price point, there will be more people riding this bike than probably any other 3 companies put together. And that's significant. That's how we get our friends hooked on the sport, is we get them a bike that's affordable. And when you get a bike like this and you've spent $500 and you maybe ride it for 6 months and then the fork starts to bug you and then it's time to upgrade it, it's worth putting money into. Now, I don't know the inner workings at Walmart, but I guarantee they have some bean counters there that are making sure they don't put money into things that don't actually help the bottom line. And props to the team that fought for the things that cost extra money, like the tapered head tube, like the boost through axle, like going with Shimano Q's on here. They've proven that even with bean counters in the chain, you can still get a great bike out at an affordable price. And that gives me a lot of hope, not just for the entry-level bikes, but for the mid-tier bikes, to show that we can be okay with a lower-end 9-speed drivetrain. We don't need all the speeds to enjoy the sport, and we can save a significant chunk of money on something that's reliable and affordable. And this reaches a whole group of people that when they step foot in a bike shop, they're never gonna find anything in this budget, so they're just gonna walk out and not join the sport. This allows more people to join the sport and fall in love with mountain biking. And then as their budget changes, they can upgrade parts and still have a great bike down the road. Now, switching into reviewer mode, the play and clunking in the fork is unnerving. Like I said, I think that was the right call. As long as this is safe and it's not gonna explode on jumps or anything, I think new riders can deal with the clunking. The tires haven't let me down yet. They're very thin sidewall. I imagine a serious mountain biker is going to ruin the tires in the first 3 months. You can go to a real bike shop and put real parts on this bike. So many under $1,000 bikes have twitchy, sketchy XC geometry, old XC geometry, not even new geometry. All right, Ozark Trail, I trust you. You've given me confidence. We did it. That was cool. I can't wait to have a dropper on this thing. I want my saddle down just 1 more inch. Man, this bike handles so well. Handling is so important. It doesn't matter what fork you've got, what drivetrain you've got. If it doesn't handle well, it doesn't matter. And too many people focus too much on spec and not on geo because they don't understand geo and how a bike's gonna handle. Yeah, you could totally get hooked on the sport with one of these bikes. I love that. Now, I also have a consultation service where I work one-on-one with each one of you to help you pick the perfect bike for your budget and riding style. I do that over on Patreon, and it's a paid service. I've got a link below. But one of the most important discussions we have in there is what's better, to buy the low-end bike and replace a fork, or to buy the mid-tier bike, or to buy the high-end bike and not replace anything. Those are personal decisions we have to make together. But here's a little free advice for everybody. My main recommendation is to get the best frame and fork that you can for the price. Forget about all the rest. All the rest can be upgraded for about $100 here or there. But the frame and fork are the 2 most expensive parts of a bike. Unfortunately, usually the good forks are on the upper tier bikes, so you're paying $1,500 to $2,500 for that. If you can't do that, what I recommend is buying the lowest end tier you can to still get the good frame. And that's what we've got here, is a good frame with the lowest end tier, everything else on it. The places bikes take you, including the Ozark Trail, that is just beautiful. This is cool. On the main pivot, they even have torque specs. I like seeing that. This hardware is really small, so this probably isn't your forever bike. I'm curious if we can make the rest of it good enough to get like a good season out of this and recommend it for newer riders. I'm really impressed with how well it handles. Yeah, it's a little heavy. That fork on ride 1 is already leaking oil. I mean, you could ride it for a few months until it craps out, and that'll get you on the trail, and then you upgrade it. In the next episode, we're going to upgrade this thing and see just how good we can make it. This reminds me of my first mountain biking and the adventures it takes you on, and how it unlocks a whole world to you of places to explore under human power, and the trails and the roller coaster feeling, having a blast on the trail. I remember that first ride like it was yesterday. Woo! And I'm just so thrilled thinking of all the memories kids are gonna make on this. Here's another thing that I'm thrilled at with this bike is new riders getting used to good geometry. That means the next bike they get is gonna have good geometry, or they're gonna be frustrated. And this is such a step in the right direction. So all that said, this bike isn't perfect, and out the door as a complete package that you never touch for 2 years, I don't think it's the right bike for almost anybody. It's got weak pivot hardware, it's got tiny little rockers here, it's got a garbage fork, it's got a quick release front wheel that doesn't instill a lot of confidence. And so as it is, it's not ready as a complete thing, but as a concept, as a way to show what's possible and a way to break and smash barriers of what bike companies are saying is impossible. It's absolutely amazing, and it's interesting what they're doing here. So I'm not gonna pretend like this is the best bike for the price. It is the most upgradable bike for the price. I think this really opens up a lot of doors for people to be able to tinker and modify and learn about components and standards and how to work on your bike and how to upgrade it. And then after a couple of years, when you know exactly what you want, you can go buy the frame you want and take all your parts and transfer them over to the world-class frame. That's a big deal, and that's how this bike was meant to be looked at, as a fixer-upper. So it's a little bit unfair to think of this bike like a $470 bike, because to be taken seriously, that fork and front wheel are truly meant to be upgraded. And so that's a bit of a bummer that out of the gate, it's kind of assuming if you're serious about riding, you're gonna replace that. That said, if you are gonna replace it, at least you're replacing something that's super affordable. I hate it when we get a mid-tier fork that's almost good, but it actually costs enough money that you felt that in the purchase price. I don't think a lot of that $470 purchase price went toward the fork. It's just a low-end fork. So it actually feels okay to get rid of that and put on a good fork. Whereas if it was a mid-tier bike with lower end forks that look nice, you're still paying $100 for that fork that you still should have upgraded anyway. All right, so now we assume the new rider has been riding for a month or two, getting the hang of riding, and they're ready to step it up to some intermediate terrain. We're gonna go head over to the castle to find some intermediate terrain. This thing actually climbs through chunk really well. Good body position, good weight balance, good grip. I'd love to see a rider far more capable than I am take this to an enduro race and just crush on it. That'd be so fun to see. This is a flow trail with some jumps in it. I wish I could get that saddle down another inch or two, but with the dropper, we'll be able to do that. I didn't trim this. I'm running stock length seat, so I could probably trim 2 inches off that and get it down lower if I weren't lazy. Oh boy, that did not have a lot of pop on the fork. She's rattly. Yeah, it's a rattly. We're clearing the jumps though. You know, for not having adjustable rebound, it's actually got okay stock settings, not great. I mean, that felt like a bag of bolts in a washing machine coming down. Just real rattly and loose feeling. It was a little rougher, but it was more in control than it should have been for a non-adjustable fork. It doesn't feel 39 pounds to me. Feels like 35. I'm glad they have lock-on grips, but the outer ring is rather uncomfortable. So you lose 10 mil of width on the bars, so now there's 700 bars because you don't dare put your hand on where that is, it's too rough. I do wish the bars were a little bit wider. I wish the stem were 15 mil shorter. Drivetrain's great. Rear end's actually feeling pretty controlled and nice. The brakes are lacking. They're just not slowing me down enough, and with how capable this machine is, it deserves better brake to allow you to really access the speed that's available on this thing. That setback seat post makes your effective seat tube angle a little slacker. So with the regular dropper, it's gonna be wonderful. Man, feels like it has real mountain bike DNA in it. But it's one of those diamonds in the rough. It's a fixer-upper. Needs a little TLC to really wake up. I think there's so much untapped potential in here. The next step is to take it down a black diamond. This is reminiscent of like an enduro trail. I'm gonna take this thing and punish it. And so I wanna see how well it does in stock form so we can come back and ride that again, souped up. I wish my brakes were a little bit stronger. Oh, not bad. The rear shock actually does something. Oh, that front is awful. Oh, blew my corner there. Yeah, I do not have control with that fork. Ugh. We've definitely found the limit of where this bike feels confident. That fork, even if you're not a experienced rider, is gonna throw you for a loop. Oh, I can feel it like twinging sideways. It almost kind of gets wedged at an angle. I can feel how, oh weird, my back brake's getting stuck. Okay, I gotta show you what's going on. Oh, yeah, that was not pleasant. I would put the brakes on and then it was so rattly, the cable would come out like this and then it would lock on. That happened front and rear a couple times. And I got locked up in the worst moment just because the fork's so rattly. What a day. That was exciting. We definitely found the limit of this bike on that Black Diamond. Dragon Scales was far too much. It was scary on this, even with the good geo. That's what I see in the Ozark Trail. I see a potential for upgrade that could be fantastic, or it could fall totally flat on its face. And we're gonna be honest, I'm not affiliated with Ozark Trail or Walmart. This was an independent video. Nobody paid me to make this. But for version 2, we're gonna slap on some parts that overcome the shortcomings of this so that we can see just how good this frame is as a base to build upon. So what would I upgrade on this bike and in what order? First thing I would upgrade is the fork, and that's a big one. Those are expensive. You're looking at 180 if you're really savvy, but most people buying these aren't gonna know what to look for. All the way up to maybe 400. So that's gonna be a big chunk of change and doubled the price of this bike at that point. But even though it's now an $850 bike, you will have a fantastic fork on it. So then that would force you to get a new wheel. And so I would get a used wheel for 50 to 100 bucks. Nothing special, front wheels don't matter a ton. Something tubeless. I'd put a dropper on next. I think all bikes should have droppers. And then I would probably do tires and then brakes. And then I think you have a pretty good bike. Now you're welcome to upgrade the wheels. I don't think the cranks need to be upgraded. I'm nerdy enough. I'm considering like, how would I drill that to make them 155s just because I'm a nerd? There's enough material there. I think I could actually drill it out and tap it. But I don't see any reason to change the shifter or derailleur or cassette or chain ring. They work beautifully. I am curious to play with the shock to see what we could get. I think if you were to do those basic things, you'd have a really solid performer. But we need to find out. So in the next episode, we're gonna try all that, test it, and see just how good this frame is as a serious mountain bike. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you need bike advice and you wanna compare bikes or pick my brain on the perfect bike for you, I do that on Patreon. If you need to learn about geometry because you don't know the difference between stack and reach and effective top tube and chainstay and rear center, you need to take that course of mine. I got a link to it down below. You guys are amazing. Thanks for watching. There's a party in the mountains and you're invited.